that this public opinion polarize on this issue so much that some people even believe that there is no such an organization. I think it is unfortunately owing to our press attitude, which I know it is terrible when it comes to human rights violations that are, sponsored or done by state agents. I was working for Kurdish Human Rights Project in London in 1996, and we were taking cases before the European Court of Human Rights on behalf of Kurdish villagers. I don't know to what extent you know Kurdish problem of Turkey, but in that years, 1996, 7, and onwards, many villages were destroyed by security forces. It is estimated 3,500, and so many thousands killings also are attributed to state security forces in Turkey. If you look at how our press covered these incidents, you would be very surprised, because you couldn't see any news coverage whatsoever. You couldn't see any single news about any village destruction in Southeast Turkey. And the other thing, there is also a huge debate whether this organization exists, or Ergenekon, whether these people are innocent who are indicated in Ergenekon case. I have known most of them for the last 16 years. Veli Küçük and many others are also known by European Court of Human Rights. European Court of Human Rights were dealing with village destruction cases and the atrocities done by gendarmerie intelligence, or we called it JITEM, which the very existence of which always denied by our military. But even 5 years youngsters in Kurdish regions would say to you that there is such an organization that is called JITEM, which abducted people, killed people, and throw their bodies onto the streets. But so far, even today, it is existence, this illegal unit of gendarmerie's existence is unfortunately is denied. I'm not surprising that our press convinced Turkish people that there is no such an organization. Because if you look at Turkish mainstream newspapers, and I apologize from journalist friends, I don't want to offend anyone, and I'm not talking about individual newspapers here. I'm talking about the Turkish media's approach, general approach to these questions. If you look at these newspapers, you can get an impression there was no such problem like Kurdish question. There was no abductions, killings, extrajudicial killings. There was no JITEM, nothing. So it still continues like that. It is unbelievable, in spite of all this evidence, all these bombs, explosives, unearthed from different places. In spite of all this coup d'etat and action plans that they are available in the court files, there is this huge propaganda war in Turkey, and as far as I can see, it has its own influence on the international media. It is very interesting. I read an article about this Ergenekon case in New York Times, and it is I admire New York Times. I try to follow it as much as possible. And there was a news coverage, and it says this case is just a fabrication, and the people put behind the bars because they're opposition to the ruling party. And some names were mentioned by this news coverage, and I know them very well. It was really a very big surprise for me seeing this terrible journalistic example in New York Times. I would like to give you an example. There is this guy, his name is, I can't remember his name actually. for the time being. Anyway, I hope I will remember. I'm terrible with names. His name is given by the news coverage and says this guy was put in jail just because his criticism towards government. But we know him. He wrote 5 books about AKP and about missionary activities in Turkey. And his books names something like that: Moses of AKP, Moses of Erdogan, etc. And if you read his books, you will see he's he claims that Erdogan and AKP is just a Jewish conspiracy, through this Jewish conspiracy, Kemalist system, Jewish conspiracy against Kemalist system, etc. And if you look at the details in Ergenekon file, you see he was getting salary from the gendarmerie, and he also get all this information from gendarmerie sources. And he also wrote another book about, and which it is named 6 Months Amongst the Missionaries, which was the beginning of the lynching campaign against missionaries in Turkey. And in 2007, 3 missionaries were killed. And I believe this whole process started with his book. I mean, his hate-mongering campaign. And in this New York Times article, he represented as a person who is just put in this trial because of his opposition to the ruling party. It is really hard to believe. So there is this huge campaign in Turkey, and there is this polarization about the case. And unfortunately, media is, some part of media is just trying the whitewash of Ergenekon case. And I will be happy actually to answer the questions.
You'll have some time for questions and discussion, but you have actually at least 1 more minute, Orhan, in which I would ask you to just tell people, there may be some people who don't know anything about what is the Ergenekon case. So just describe what the case is as it's coming up.
There are different components in this case, but it is, how can we summarize it? It is now, one component is the claims that this military personnel and some civilians were helping them to wage another coup d'etat in Turkey. This is one claim. And another thing, there are different claims that Armenians leaders, Alevis, and other important figures were going to be assassinated to pave the way of another coup d'etat in Turkey. So we can summarize it actually 5, maybe 6, 7 coup d'etat plans are now being investigated within the scope of the case.
Good. Thank you. I remember actually when I first went to Turkey and was working in Turkey, I hate to say how many years ago, 40 years ago, maybe 35 years ago, and already there had been some dramatic assassinations of liberals. And there was then a great deal of, this is what became known for years and years as the cases with unknown killers. And none of the cases were ever resolved, but it now possibly appears that going way back, that many liberals who had been assassinated, and it was usually attributed to Islamic fanaticism, may in fact not have had anything to do with Islamic fanaticism, or even Iran, but possibly to suggest that there was that kind. But I don't know. I'm just saying this goes way back, even in my memory, of these strange killings of prominent liberals that were never, ever clarified.